This past November I got a package in the mail. Now we all know that she was wheelchair bound. We knew that she didn't speak, so it meant that our conversations were cut out. But I could send a note. I just didn't expect notes back. It wasn't the burden she needed to bear. So I get a package and I get a card. It was for my birthday. A mother all the while. Do you understand? What I'm saying? Certainly a mother of the movement, but intimately, in terms of the dedication. And it's signed, from her, with the handwriting of her daughter, Bernice. As I continued to travel, I sent cards again just so that she can hear from me. Every time I sent a card, I'd get a call from one of the children saying, well, more specifically, Mother wants to hear your voice. And I'd get it, you know, too far to call back immediately. And I'm trying not to put pressure. And then I'd get another call with a tap of the foot and the sound, I don't know, did you get my message? And I know it's not just her pounding, it's Mother pounding. And my heart, if you can talk about intuition, was almost too scared to touch. Because I wasn't ready. Yet, no doubt one of the most beautiful things as her eldest daughter and I discussed. When you witness love and being loved the way we have by each our respectable mothers. You almost feel like you don't have the right to ask them to stay a day longer. When they are now in the arms of he who loved her most. For it is not fair to rob someone of that. Because if she was here, we'd still be on the receiving end. But from a chair, and quietly silent. The reflection, and I know he reached down caressing her, and saying, I'm here all the while. Sometimes just the human being needs simply that. I'd like to read a phrase from Khalil Gibran, that I lifted, on death. Now, I, myself, don't use the term death, but transition. And he says, what is it to cease breathing, but to free the breath from its restless tides? That it may rise and expand and seek God unencumbered? Only when you drink from the river of silence, shall you indeed sing. And when you have reached the mountaintop, only then shall you begin to climb. And when the earth shall claim your limbs, only then shall you truly dance. Trust the dreams, for in them is hidden the gate to eternity. So as we have all have grown up through this civil rights movement some before, and we know that anthem hymn. We shall overcome. I'd like to presume to add an update of affirmation, not the someday, but today. Time's up. We have lost many on that walk, on that journey, who stood steadfast, steadfast. Giving and doing, serving and being, sharing and extending. And I would rather say something like, we have come over today. We have. Achieved today. Even if you don't have an affirmation that says now. Because somebody else will rest with yours someday, they'll put you on pause. With someday we have to do it now, by any means necessary. Superscript 1 Wife of Oliver Tambo, leader in the African National Congress. Superscript 2 Former wife of Medgar Evers, an NAACP Mississippi Field Secretary who was assassinated on June 12 in Jackson. Mississippi while in the middle of a voter registration drive. Barack Obama. Address on Libya. Delivered March 18, 2011. Good afternoon, everybody. I want to take this opportunity to update the American people about the situation in Libya. Over the last several weeks, the world has watched events unfold in Libya with hope and alarm. Last month, protesters took to the streets across the country to demand their universal rights. And a government that is accountable to them and responsive to their aspirations. But they were met with an iron fist. Within days, whole parts of the country declared their independence from a brutal regime. And members of the government serving in Libya and abroad chose to align themselves with the forces of change. Muammar Gaddafi clearly lost the confidence of his own people and the legitimacy to lead. Instead of respecting the rights of his own people, Gaddafi chose the path of brutal suppression. Innocent civilians were beaten, imprisoned, and in some cases killed. Peaceful protests were forcefully put down. Hospitals were attacked and patients disappeared. A campaign of intimidation and repression began. In the face of this injustice, the United States and the international community moved swiftly. Sanctions were put in place by the United States and our allies and partners. The UN Security Council imposed further sanctions, an arms embargo. And the specter of international accountability for Gaddafi and those around him. Humanitarian assistance was positioned on Libya's borders, and those displaced by the violence received our help. Ample warning was given that Gaddafi needed to stop his campaign of repression, or be held accountable. The Arab League and the European Union joined us in calling for an end to violence. Once again, Gaddafi chose to ignore the will of his people and the international community. Instead, he launched a military campaign against his own people. And there should be no doubt about his intentions, because he himself has made them clear. For decades, he has demonstrated a willingness to use brute force through his sponsorship of terrorism against the American people as well as others, and through the killings that he has carried out within his own borders. And just yesterday, speaking of the city of Benghazi, a city of roughly 700,000 people, he threatened and I quote, "We will have no mercy and no pity, no mercy on his own citizens." Now, here is why this matters to us. Left unchecked, we have every reason to believe that Gaddafi would commit atrocities. Against his people. Many thousands could die. A humanitarian crisis would ensue. The entire region could be destabilized, endangering many of our allies and partners. The calls of the Libyan people for help would go unanswered. The democratic values that we stand for would be overrun. Moreover, the words of the international community would be rendered hollow. And that's why the United States has worked with our allies and partners to shape a strong international response at the United Nations. Our focus has been clear: protecting innocent civilians within Libya, and holding the Gaddafi regime accountable. Yesterday, in response to a call for action by the Libyan people and the Arab League, the UN Security Council passed a strong resolution that demands an end to the violence against citizens. It authorizes the use of force with an explicit commitment to pursue all necessary measures to stop the killing. To include the enforcement of a no-fly zone over Libya. It also strengthens our sanctions and the enforcement of an arms embargo against the Gaddafi regime. Now, once more, Muammar Gaddafi has a choice. The resolution that passed lays out very clear conditions that must be met. The United States, the United Kingdom, France, and Arab states agree that a ceasefire must be implemented immediately. That means all attacks against civilians must stop. Gaddafi must stop his troops from advancing on Benghazi, pull them back from Ajdabiya. Misrata and Zawiya, and establish water, electricity and gas supplies to all areas. Humanitarian assistance must be allowed to reach the people of Libya. Let me be clear, these terms are not negotiable. These terms are not subject to negotiation. If Gaddafi does not comply with the resolution, the international community will impose consequences. And the resolution will be enforced through military action. In this effort, the United States is prepared to act as part of an international coalition. American leadership is essential, but that does not mean acting alone. It means shaping the conditions for the international community to act together. That's why I have directed Secretary Gates and our military to coordinate their planning. And tomorrow Secretary Clinton will travel to Paris for a meeting with our European allies and Arab partners about the enforcement. Of Resolution 1973. We will provide the unique capabilities that we can bring to bear to stop the violence against civilians. Including enabling our European allies and Arab partners to effectively enforce a no-fly zone. I have no doubt that the men and women of our military are capable of carrying out this mission. Once more, they have the thanks of a grateful nation and the admiration of the world. I also want to be clear about what we will not be doing. The United States is not going to deploy ground troops into Libya. And we are not going to use force to go beyond a well-defined goal. Specifically. The protection of civilians in Libya. In the coming weeks, we will continue to help the Libyan people with humanitarian, and economic assistance so that they can fulfill their aspirations peacefully. Now, the United States did not seek this outcome. Our decisions have been driven by Gaddafi's refusal to respect the rights of his people. And the potential for mass murder of innocent civilians. It is not an action that we will pursue alone. Indeed, our British and French allies, and members of the Arab League, have already committed to take a leadership role in the enforcement of this resolution, just as they were instrumental in pursuing it. We are coordinating closely with them. And this is precisely how the international community should work. As more nations bear both the responsibility and the cost of enforcing international law,